Hey y'all, welcome back as we continue through the book of Job. And today we are moving into chapter 38 in the book of Job, where God speaks and answers Job. Elihu had prepared a bridge for the Lord to speak and meet personally with Job. Elihu said a lot of really good things that Job needed to hear and consider. Elihu assessed Job's problem accurately. Job's actions may have been right before the Lord. He was not a sinner as his three friends were making him out to be, but his attitude was wrong. He did not have a pure heart before the Lord. He was not the saint that he viewed himself to be. Elihu's central mission was to remind Job that he was not God and that he should stop acting like he was. Job had slowly moved toward a defiant, self righteous attitude that was not at all healthy. It was this know it all, prideful attitude that God will expose and destroy as he appears and answers Job from a whirlwind. God will take Job on a virtual tour of the world and creation, and he will show him the importance of fearing the Lord. His questions to Job will include reference to God's power and wisdom in bringing the universe into being, his providential care of his creatures, and man's inability to overpower his creation. His words cut through the voices of all the other opinions with supreme authority. And we'll go ahead and read God's words to Job, starting in verse 1. Then the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind. Who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words? Brace yourself like a man, because I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you know so much. Who determined its dimensions and stretched out the surveying line? What supports its foundations, and who laid its cornerstone as the morning stars sang together and the angels shouted for joy? Who kept the sea inside its boundaries as it burst from the womb, and as I clothed it with clouds and wrapped it in thick darkness? For I locked it behind barred gates, limiting its shores. I said, this far and no further will you come. Here your proud waves must stop. Have you ever commanded the morning to appear and caused the dawn to rise in the east? Have you ever made daylight spread to the ends of the earth to bring an end to the night's wickedness? As the light approaches, the earth takes shape like clay pressed beneath a seal. It is robed in brilliant colors. The light disturbs the wicked and stops the arm that is raised in violence. Have you ever explored the springs from which the seas come? Have you ever explored their depths? Do you know where the gates of death are located? Have you seen the gates of utter gloom? Do you realize the extent of earth? Tell me about it if you know. Where does light come from, and where does darkness go? Can you take each to its home? Do you know how to get there? But of course you know all this, for you were born before it was all created, and you are so very experienced. We're going to pause right there. Job wanted an audience with God, and now, as requested, Job is experiencing God as God answers him from a whirlwind. God spoke to the Israelites at Mount Sinai in Exodus 19:16 through 19, in the thunders surrounded by smoke, fire, the sound of the trumpet from the heavens, and the mountain shaking violently. He spoke to Elijah in a soft whisper in 1 Kings 19:11 through 13, and now he speaks to Job from a whirlwind, and he doesn't hold back. We tend to prefer God to speak to us in the sunshine, but sometimes he needs to speak out of a storm, whirlwind, or thunder to get our attention. The Lord reveals to Job his opinion by asking 77 interrogatory questions about creation in this chapter, as well as the chapters that are going to come. He's going to be asking Job 77 questions. He is essentially asking Job, can you make and control my creation? God helps Job to realize his own inadequacy and inability to meet God as an equal to defend his cause. I can't help but wonder if Job regretted his request for a day in court with God after God's very first question in verse 2, where he said, "Who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words?" Job was certain that his speeches were filled with wisdom and knowledge, but God quickly put an end to that delusion. God highlights the vast dimensions of creation. Job wasn't there during creation, so there's no way he can claim to know so much about the works of God. From the beginning, God planned his creation to be a garden of joyful beauty, but sin has turned creation into a battlefield of ugliness and misery. In our selfishness, we are wasting natural resources and polluting God's land, his air, his water, and his outer space. So much so that scientists are actually contemplating how much longer God's planet will be able to continue to support life as we know it. God provides for all of our needs, but he does not provide for our greed, and our greed is destroying his earth, his creation. The Lord continues to describe the seas at birth. The seas were knit together secretly and then burst forth like a baby emerging from the womb within limits set by God and God alone. God commands the heavenly host and everything below. As the sun's light spreads across the world, it reveals the details of the landscape and puts an end to evil deeds done in darkness. Humanity has only ever traveled 35,876 feet down into the ocean, which is about 6.79 miles. And we've traveled about 15 billion miles into the outer space, the reaches of the outer space. God knows every single inch of creation intimately because he made it all, and we have barely experienced all of his creation. God asked Job if he could navigate the reaches of the east to the west, or if the horizons were too much for him to calculate. The Lord's holy sarcasm and irony here is what Job needs to cut through his pride and bring him to his knees in repentance. The Lord always knows what we need in every situation to bring us to our best in him, to polish us and prepare us for our eternity with him. He is preparing us for eternity, and when we allow him humbly and submit and let him do his work, it brings more polishing to our lives. We'll continue in verse 22. Have you visited the storehouses of snow, or seen the storehouses of hail? I have reserved them as weapons for the time of trouble, for the day of battle and war. Where is the path to the source of light? Where is the home of the east wind? Who created a channel for the torrents of rain? Who laid out the path for the lightning? Who makes the rain fall on barren land in a desert where no one lives? Who sends rain to satisfy the parched ground and make the tender grass spring up? Does the rain have a father? Who gives birth to the dew? Who is the mother of the ice? Who gives birth to the frost from the heavens? For the water turns to ice as hard as rock, and the surface of the water freezes. Can you direct the movements of the stars, binding the clusters of Pleiades or loosening the cords of Orion? Can you direct the constellations of the seasons, or guide the bear with her cubs across the heavens? Do you know the laws of the universe? Can you use them to regulate the earth? Can you shout to the clouds and make it rain? Can you make lightning appear and cause it to strike as you direct? Who gives intuition to the heart and instinct to the mind? Who is wise enough to count all the clouds? Who can tilt the water jars of heaven when the parched ground is dry and the soil has hardened into clods? Can you stalk prey for a lioness and satisfy the young lion's appetites as they lie in their dens or crouch in the thicket? Who provides food for the ravens when their young cry out to God and wander about in hunger? The heavenly government of the entire world is all under the control of God. As the Lord continues speaking to Job, he moves on to rain, hail, and frost. It is God who sends rain to places no one lives, and it is God who knows why as he directs every single drop. I am sure Job was hoping for all of this to stop as quickly as it had begun, but the Lord continues as he centers Job's attention to the heavens. It is mankind who studies the heavens and the Lord who controls them. Creating all these things is one thing, maintaining them for mankind's good is a whole other thing. From the heavens to the earth, it is the Lord who created it all, and it is the Lord who orchestrates it all. The providence of God is remarkable, and it should leave us standing in reverent awe and wonder of who He is. In His wisdom and power, God oversees the workings of the entire cosmos, making sure every last element is cared for and working together. We humans have a hard time keeping the machinery of life operating, but God runs the entire universe, every detail within it, with extreme precision. What my opinion of God is doesn't matter. It is not important in the light of what God's opinion of me is. I should be more concerned about being humble, repentant, and submitted to the Lord and His opinion of me. That's what truly matters. This is the switch that happened with Job in this chapter. God redirects Job's line of sight and his heart from himself to God. All of our focus needs to be on God, not ourselves. We have nothing to bring to the Lord, but He has everything to bring to us. God has established who He is. Everything else is secondary to God. Our opinions and view of the world are limited by our humanity, but God knows all. God has a full view, and He sees from the top down and all around. He is God. He knows what He's doing. God's opening address to Job addresses his pride. God didn't question Job's integrity or sincerity. He only questioned Job's ability to explain the ways of God to the world. Job had spoken truthfully about God, but his speeches lacked humility. Job thought he knew about God, but he failed to realize how much he didn't know about God. Knowledge of our ignorance is the first step towards wisdom. Job may have walked in integrity before the Lord, but he did not fully recognize or realize the full magnitude of God's hand in all of creation. Job never had reason to challenge God, even in the suffering. God is God. He will always be Lord of all. There is no one besides the Lord. It's our humble submission to His authority that makes all the difference for our lives. The Lord is our rock. He is our refuge. He makes our way perfect. He counts every star and gives names to them all. He is great. He is vast in power, and His understanding is infinite. When we stop to realize how much we do not know about God and how amazing He is, it will keep us humble before Him, and it will keep us in a place of wholehearted dependency on Him. God, the creator of the entire cosmos, also holds each and every one of our lives in His mighty hands. It is important to know God personally in our hearts as He continues to teach us about Himself in our heads. The answer to Job's problem was not an explanation about God, which is what Job's three friends had offered, but rather a revelation of God. Job's friends declared and defended the greatness of God, but they failed to persuade Job. When God displayed His majesty and greatness, it humbled Job and it brought him to a place of silent submission before the Lord. And that was the turning point for Job. God's answer is Himself. God's answer will always be Himself. He revealed Himself to Job, and Job caught a glimpse of God's great glory in a very personal way. And if we will just catch just a glimpse of God and His great glory, it changes you. It changes you significantly, and it starts to move within your heart and soul to change you for God's glory. You suddenly just want to pursue Jesus with everything within you, and nothing else matters. There's nothing in this temporary world that will ever compare to the majestic awesomeness of God. And we're going to keep learning about Him for eternity, because He's just that great. He's just that big. He's just that extreme. He is God. And we can trust Him. He loves us. He loves us unconditionally. And we can trust Him, pray, submit, humble our wills to His, submit our wills so it lines up to His, and trust Him with every outcome. Look up, not around. Trust Him in every single circumstance. Thanks, y'all. I hope you're having a glorious day in the Lord.